Life is hard. There's a lot of things that you can't control. You can't control if you're born in a wealthy family or a poor family. And sometimes you have no control of your circumstances or the environment you grow up in. What I've come to realize is sometimes it's not our fault, but it's still our problem to solve. I feel like a lot of us at one point in our life get overwhelmed, and some people just give up. But I feel like we shouldn't give up. Sometimes you feel like you're trapped, and you feel like some of the decisions that you make aren't really your own. You feel like you had to make certain decisions at that time. You can't really change the decisions you've already made. You can only control the decisions that you make now. And we have to choose to focus on the decisions that we can make now rather than the decisions that we could have made. And sometimes we might not be able to change much, but no matter how hard things get, we have to try at least a little bit, because I believe as long as you try a little bit each day, as long as you focus on what you can do to make things better, and each time you do something, you get one step closer to solving your problem. As long as you do everything that you could have done, because a lot of times we think that there's only so much we can do, but once you get something done, there's going to be something else that you think of, something else that you can do to make things better. And little by little, you slowly start to improve things. You slowly start to get out of the situation that you're in. Things do get better. I think a lot of times we try to think about what is the one thing that we have to do to solve our problems, rather than breaking it up and taking it one step at a time. And I feel like that makes it a little bit more manageable, because sometimes when we think about everything that we have to do, it gets overwhelming. And sometimes it gets to a point where you don't know where to start. You start to overthink. And when you overthink, one negative thought becomes another negative thought. And you just go down this rabbit hole of negativity. But we don't have to overthink. We have to just do. Problems only get fixed by doing them, by trying. And I feel like no matter what happens, we can't give up. We have to at least try, even when things feel like they're never going to get better, because we're all going to have times where we feel like that, but we have to keep going. We have to keep trying. There's a lot of things in our past where we thought it was difficult, where we thought it was impossible, where we thought we couldn't do it, and we doubted ourselves, but we got it done once we started. Sometimes things are difficult in your mind, but when you get up and start moving, things aren't as difficult as we make them to be. You start to realize it wasn't as difficult as you thought. We tend to over-exaggerate our thoughts, and we tend to underestimate ourselves. I feel like we spend too much time focused on what we could have done, and we blame ourselves for not making a better decision, for not making a different decision. But what we gotta realize is, at that time, there would have been no way of knowing the result of what the other decision could have been. Perhaps you could have made a different decision, but there could have been something else that you might not have liked about that decision, and you just would have went back and forth thinking about the decisions you could have made. But a lot of times you can't blame yourself, because maybe you weren't even in the right mindset to even make those decisions. So what's the point of even thinking about, oh, you could have made a different decision, when you didn't even have that type of thought process of making that decision? There would have been no way that you would have made that decision anyways, because of your mindset, because of what you believed in at that time, because of what you wanted to do. You didn't even have the mindset to make a different decision. So we can't focus on the things that we could have done when we didn't even know at the time. A lot of times we just have to accept the decisions we've already made, because what you got to realize is everything that you've been through, every decision that you made has led you here, has made you the person that you've become. Regardless of what you've been through, just know that you're a strong person, because you've been through very difficult situations and you got through it. So whatever problems that you're dealing with now, just know that you'll get through it. I think the most beautiful thing about life is the fact that nothing lasts forever. Things aren't always good and things aren't always bad. So when you know you're in a bad situation, when you're feeling down, that's not going to last forever. Things do change. Things do get better. Life will always have its ups and downs. Nothing lasts forever, and that's what makes life exciting. It's the fact that things don't always stay the same. Can you imagine if life was still like what it was back in the day, thousands of years ago? Imagine if things stayed the same, nothing ever improved, nothing ever changed. What would be the meaning of life? It's the fact that we get to experience different things. It's because we get to experience change. That's what makes life exciting. A lot of times people say they would get bored if they lived forever, not realizing that things don't always stay the same forever. You're not living the same life as the people that lived in the 1900s. Things have changed. New inventions, new innovations. So even if we lived forever, things wouldn't stay the same. The roads that we drive on, the games that we play. Perhaps we'll discover a new planet with life on it. Things are constantly changing. And I feel like we wouldn't necessarily get bored because things are going to be different 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. The people that think that they'll get bored if they lived forever is because they think that the life that they're experiencing now is the life that they'll experience forever, not realizing that society has made so much progress. Back in the day, we used to live in a forest. Then we started living in villages, towns. Then we built cities. We used to ride horses. Now we drive cars. Back then, the only way to travel across the ocean was by boat. But now we have airplanes. So things don't always stay the same. And things are going to continue to change. And sometimes we get too stuck in our minds, thinking that things are always going to stay the way they are. But they don't have to. I feel like we have to realize that we get to change our life. Things don't always got to stay the way it is. The older I get, the more I realize that there's no point in trying to control everything. A lot of things are just not in your control. And you just have to live life and understand that there's a lot of things out there that you would enjoy doing. But we have to get out of our comfort zone. We have to experience life. There's places that you want to go that you don't even know you want to go. I feel like the more things that we try, the more we start to understand ourselves. I feel like we spend too much time in our minds rather than just appreciating the fact that we're living. The fact that we get to do things that no other living thing can do. The fact that we're human beings and we get to choose how we live our life is something that we fail to appreciate. Animals don't get to experience what we experience. Just be grateful that you're not a cow. You would be a cheeseburger. Most of the things that we think about won't even happen. Most of the things that we stress about is exaggerated in our mind. Things are not always as bad as it seems. I feel like when we're overthinking, we have to be aware enough to stop ourselves. Not by telling ourselves to stop overthinking, because that usually causes us to overthink more. It's like when you tell yourself not to get nervous and you get more nervous. We can't just tell ourselves to stop overthinking. We have to focus on something else, and that's by doing something else. I feel like we overthink the most when we're isolated, when we're by ourselves, or when we're sitting down. But when we keep ourselves busy, when we focus on the things that truly matter, when we get up and do something about it, that's when we're not overthinking. We're only overthinking when we're not active. That's when we get stuck in our minds. Sometimes the best thing to do is to take a walk. It's to focus on the present and not think about the past or the future. Going somewhere, doing something. A lot of times we figure out where we need to go by going. You don't know where you need to go if you haven't done enough. If you haven't experienced enough, you won't know where you are on the map. And what we have to realize is we don't know how to do anything if all we do is think. We learn by doing. We learn through action. That's when you go through your trials and errors. That's when you figure things out. That's where you hone your skills. When you do things, that's when you become better, not when you think. It's when you implement your ideas. That's when you learn the most. It's like when you go to school or go to college and you learn things. And when you graduate, you don't really know anything. You learn how to do things on the job. You can learn concepts, but that doesn't mean you know how to apply those concepts. It's when you start working, that's when you figure things out. That's when you figure out what works and what doesn't. And what we have to realize is we'll never learn if we never do. Someone who's an expert in their field through years and years of experience will always be better than someone who just studies the concept and never done it. It's kind of like boxing or fighting. You could shadow box all you want. You could practice on the heavy bag all you want. But when you get in the ring and there's an opponent in front of you that can punch back, it's a different experience. You learn how to fight through sparring. I feel like that concept can be applied in all areas of life because you don't truly know how to do something until you do it. You don't truly know what other people are going through until you go through it. It's like the one friend that I had who didn't understand why I was so hurt when I was going through a breakup until he went through a breakup because he didn't know it felt that way. So a lot of times we think we know everything, but we really don't know anything. I feel like we spend too much time thinking about everything to the extreme. Whether we think something is too easy or too hard, things are not always as hard as you think they are. That's why the best way to make progress is by taking action, is by doing it. The only way to improve things is by doing it. So we shouldn't spend too much time thinking, because if we use that time doing things, taking action, we will be further than we are now. I understand things are difficult, but you have to at least try. And if it doesn't work out, try something else. Keep trying, keep improving, because things will get better. Life only gets better when you choose to get better, when you move in the right direction. I feel like most of our problems come from a lack of adjustments that we fail to make in life. Sometimes we struggle financially because we fail to properly budget. We try to live above our means. And sometimes we overindulge in things that we shouldn't. Things are only enjoyable when there's a balance. Even when you eat your favorite ice cream, if you eat it every day, it's not as enjoyable as if you eat it once a week. I feel like life is all about finding a balance. When you overthink, you don't get enough done. When you don't think at all, you start messing up because you didn't plan. It's about doing the right amount of thinking and the right amount of work. A lot of times we're not happy because we don't know when to stop. For wealthy people, for people that are already successful and still focus all their time on working rather than spending time doing the things that they like or spending time with their family, they're not very happy because they don't know when to stop. There's going to be a lot of things that you don't know how to do in life, but you learn along the way. I believe that we truly don't know anything until we do it. Until we walk the path. And through our journey, we start to learn. Because the more you do, the more you know. The more knowledge that you gain. The more wisdom that you gain. Just because you read a book on how to fix a car doesn't mean you know how to fix a car. You can only learn how to become a mechanic by practicing, by doing, hands-on experience, learning on the job. That's when you truly become an expert, become good at something. And sometimes we wish we were better at something, but we have to understand that no one's good at everything. There's going to be things that you're good at, and there's going to be things that you're bad at. That's just a part of life. But that doesn't mean we can't improve. That doesn't mean we can't learn. That doesn't mean we can't get better at things. But we have to put the effort into improving the things we want to improve on. You don't become the best basketball player by thinking about how to be the best basketball player. You become the best by practicing, by playing. Through experience, you become better. And for those of us who are street smart, we became street smart through experience, through the things that we've been through. That's what we have to realize. If we want to learn about something, if we want to get better at something, we have to experience it. We have to work on it.